Good morning, everyone. My name is Norm Horofker, and I'm the minister of this congregation, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Halifax, founded in 1837. I can hear you saying it with me. Welcome on this very cold winter day, but it's bright and sunny. We survived the blizzard. I hope you were all able to stay warm and dry. Jessica Friesen is our music director, and we are all extremely happy to have her back here with us in Halifax, following her visit with family in Morden in Manitoba. Marie-Claude Leroux is our director of religious exploration. Vitska Gradstein is our service assistant this morning, and this morning Paul Galbraith is our volunteer technical director. We have a great team, and I thank you all for participating this morning. If you have not already received notification from our church and you would like to do so, get some regular updates on our activities and services, 2 or 3 emails a week at the most, you can send me an email at minister@uuch.ca and we'll get you onto our listserv. Jessica has chosen a prelude piece for us this morning, and we hope that it will lift your spirits and help you settle into the service. So I invite you to relax now and enjoy. Before the service begins, we have a few announcements. The order of service was sent out over UU Info late on Saturday, so please look at that for a complete list of announcements, but I have a few highlights for you here. First, one announcement that escaped the order of service is that there will be a meeting of the church board this Monday evening, tomorrow, by Zoom at 6:30 p.m. Second announcement, you're aware of, Sunday services will be online only for the time being due to the current COVID situation. But that doesn't stop the work of the church, so there are team meetings this week. Caring team is meeting the third Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m., so that's January the 18th at 7 p.m. Team lead is Sylvia Mattinson. The Climate Crisis Team is meeting the third Wednesday of the month, January the 19th, 7 p.m. Team lead is Margaret Galbraith. And the Saturday Brunch Team is meeting the third Friday of the month, January 21st at 1 p.m. And the team lead there is Kathy Anthony. There's an announcement about Soulful Sundown, which will be held on Saturday, January 29th. You can watch for details coming up on UU Info, and I think next Sunday we're going to have a little bit of an advance. The featured musician for Soulful Sundown is going to be featured in our service next Sunday. And now I invite Vitska, a team lead for our Truth and Healing and Reconciliation team, to speak to us. So now we'll begin our service, like most UU congregations, by lighting our chalice. And before I do that, I have these words to share. The lighting of the chalice invites us to cross a threshold into a space of intention. And yet I fear that there is more effort made to be intentional at the beginning of a yoga session than there is when we join together to light our chalice. in a yoga session, almost invariably, people will come and be present, do some deep breathing, do some stretching, prepare themselves to be in their bodies, fully present to what's happening. So this morning, I invite you to cross that threshold with me in the spirit of intentionality as we begin our service. We are here because our faith tradition is important to us. Let's take a moment now. Close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so. Breathe deeply and prepare to engage in this service together. We would at this point, and I'm sorry that UUCH is not able to present this for us. We'll invite her back next week. Yeah, this would be a time when we would acknowledge that we are living in the land of Mi'kmaq, and that for thousands of years before the settlers arrived, the land was cared for by the Mi'kmaq of this land. And now, Jessica will lead us in our opening hymn. We're living intentionally, as is our theme for January, and we'll be sensitive to the world around us if we're doing so, and we'll hear the universe calling for us to engage. So Jessica's selected an appropriate opening hymn.
Good morning, everyone. We will be singing Do You Hear, number 112, on the screen as always. Do you hear, oh my friend, in the place where you stand, through the sky, through the land? Do you hear, in the heights, on the plains, in the vale, on the main, in the sun, in the rain? Do you hear, through the roar, through the rush, through the throng, through the crush? Do you hear in the hush of your soul, hear the cry, fear won't still, hear the heart's call to will, hear a sigh starting trill in your soul, From the place where you stand to the outermost strand, do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear? All the dreams, all the dares, all the sighs, all the prayers, they are yours, mine and theirs. Do you hear? Thank you.
And thank you. Marie-Claude is our Director of Religious Exploration for our children and youth. And this morning she selected a story for children of all ages that I think will challenge the youngest and the oldest and everyone in between. Perhaps it's a cautionary tale about being intentional about the stories we tell. We'll let you decide. Over to you, Marie-Claude.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm sharing the story, I Am Birch by Scott Kelly. Everyone calls me Birch, for I'm a birch tree, much like any other. At least, I was a tree until Beaver came along. As he gnawed through my bark and brought me crashing down, he was mumbling. Cold and darkness, I heard him say, cold and darkness. Porcupine came slowly by, as porcupines do. He yawned. Then he told me about the coming of a great cold and darkness. Everyone in the forest was terrified, he said. They were spending their days stocking up. I asked Porcupine, "Who did you hear this from?" Porcupine shrugged and yawned again. He said he thought he heard it from Deer. Then he shambled off in the direction from which he had come. Deer came by. I asked her if she was spreading word of cold and darkness. "Not me," said Deer. "I heard it from Badger." Badger came by, and I asked her if she was spreading word of cold and darkness. "Oh, not me," said Badger. "I heard it from Heron." Heron landed nearby, looking for fish, and I yelled to him, "Heron, have you been spreading word of cold and darkness?" Heron looked at me in the way that herons have and flew away. Squirrel came by and tripped over Rock, who has been at the base of my trunk for as long as I can remember. "Hey," said Rock, "watch where you're going." Squirrel ran up, too fast to listen, her cheeks full of nuts. "Rock," I asked, "is it you who's been spreading word of cold and darkness?" "I am Rock," said Rock, as if that explained everything. Rabbit came by. Just then the shadow of Eagle darkened the ground. Rabbit stopped dead still right in front of me. "Rabbit," I asked, "is it you who's been spreading word of cold and darkness?" Rabbit said nothing, nose barely twitching. He waited for Shadow of Eagle to move on, then hopped off. Moose and Bear came by, mouths full of blueberries. "I heard the cold is going to be very cold," Moose said. "And I heard the dark is going to be very dark," Bear replied. "But the cold is going to be colder than the dark is going to be dark." No, 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 you've got it wrong. The dark is going to be darker than the cold is going to be cold." "Stop arguing," I said. "Who told you about this very cold cold and this very dark dark?" "Can't remember," said Bear. "Not sure, really," said Moose. I saw the chaos of fear everywhere. So many trees cut down, blueberry bushes stripped bare, everyone running about. Beaver came back looking for more trees. There were none. "Beaver," I said, "are you the one who's been spreading word of cold and darkness?" "Yes," said Beaver. He smiled. "I told everybody so they could prepare." Beavers, you see, love to prepare. "But who told you?" I asked. "It was Rabbit. Or was it Deer? No, wait, it was... Oh, I don't know. But they seemed quite sure." "There is no coming time of great cold and darkness," I said. "There never was." Which, of course, was true. The foretold time of cold and darkness never arrived. Beaver admitted his mistake, which is hard for beavers, and spent days wandering amongst tree stumps, apologizing. He never did remember where he had heard it. For a while, everyone talked about cold and darkness until they forgot. Winds calmed, trees sprouted, and the forest felt like home again. Blueberries grew. One day, an acorn fell before me. "I will grow to be a mighty oak tree," Acorn said, "but you will always be a stump." Squirrel came by, picked up Acorn, and scurried off. "Or maybe not," I called after Acorn. Suddenly a leaf sprung from one of my remaining branches. It sought the sun and the rain. It worked very hard at being a leaf. Over time, many, many years, I grew into a huge arching birch tree. Animals gather here, though none of them quite know why. The end.
Thank you, Marie Claude. I'm still thinking about that. And now I'm going to ask Jessica, who is at my side here, to to assist as we prepare this special time to reflect on our joys and sorrows. It's a sacred time in our service. It's a time that we set apart to honor the many joys and the many sorrows that you, the congregation, are living, and to acknowledge the mutual support of our community. As is our practice, Jessica will light the first candle for all those who are here with us on social media or in our thoughts, our hearts, who are struggling mentally, physically, financially, or emotionally. And we'll light a second candle, a joyful candle, for all the joys that are in the room, the big joys that come along only infrequently, and the little joys that we are blessed with every day, if we're but able to see them. Each week, I invite anyone who would like to have a candle lit to email me with details. And later in the service, after we stop the live streaming on YouTube, and before the coffee hour begins, I'll invite anyone else to share a joy or a sorrow and have a candle lit if they would like to do so. This morning, I'd like to light a candle, given the weather conditions, for all those living with inadequate housing. Housing that doesn't provide warmth, that the most of us take for granted. And this morning, we light a candle in memory of Alexa McDonough, a dedicated political leader who I know touched many lives among those listening today. One member of our congregation feels the loss particularly deeply, for Alexa was the cousin of Alan Shaw. Alexa died on Saturday after a lengthy struggle with Alzheimer's disease. Later in the service, we'll stop the live streaming on YouTube, and before the coffee hour begins, I'll invite anyone else to share a joy or a sorrow and have a candle lit if they would like to do so. And now Jessica has our reflective hymn. Again, a hymn that reflects our theme of intentionality. It's a hymn that reminds us that how we live our lives affects those whose lives we touch.
When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly. Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give. When I am troubled, will you listen to me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend? Will you be there for me? Comfort me tenderly. Will you share some of your feelings with me? Everyone, if you will show me commitment, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to Thank you.
I'm going to invite Vitska to come back on for a moment and see if we still have the same problem.
Thank you very much, Norm. And yes, the R services take place on unceded Mi'kmaq lands. And for today, because I thought it would be the beginning of a new year, I decided to read you a story that was written by Tim Bousquet in the Halifax Examiner, which I read very faithfully. Tim Bousquet reported in the Halifax Examiner of October 25, 2021, about a triumph that happened to the Mi'kmaq. That's what they say, and definitely it was a triumph. That's the Alton gas development that we have heard about and then we have forgotten about, because the Alton gas development was fought by the Mi'kmaq and by the Mi'kmaq grandmothers, of whom one has just passed away yesterday, and through Amy's community in the north end of Halifax. We know this. And so, but I wanted to read for you parts of the article that was written by Tim Bousquet on October 25th. Environmentalists in Mi'kmaq are celebrating the announcement, of the decommissioning of the Alton gas storage project around the Shubenacadie River as a win. And indeed it is. And I'll let others debate, he says, the merits and the threats of specific proposals to store gas. That was the emphasis of the Mi'kmaq people, who are always very good at trying to protect the environment, especially. But there's no arguing that the cancellation of the Alton gas within the broader context of the global re-examination of natural gas is definitely needed wins too, and this was a win. Not so many years ago, fossil fuel companies sold natural gas as a transition fuel, as the world stepped away from high carbon coal and oil and moved towards renewables. The industry claimed that lower carbon natural gas would bridge the transition by helping reduce emissions as renewable technology was developed. I never thought of, Tim never bought that argument. For one, no one ever abandons a profitable well, whether oil or gas, once the thing is operating. It will continue to operate until it is not financially lucrative anymore. Expanding the catalog of fossil fuel natural gas wells does not miraculously close the tap on existing wells. It just means the world will collectively have even more fossil fuel, not less. Use it. Second, the calculation of greenhouse gas. I didn't understand it, but greenhouse gas emissions from natural gas has always been sketchy. Third, new renewable technology is proving itself much more sooner than anybody thought just a few years ago. Now, I was very excited when I heard about the protests by the Mi'kmaq here in Halifax against these caverns going to be filled with salt and and emptied of their salt, and then making room for gas. And where did the gas come from? Probably from the also newly built by Alta Gas, liquid natural gas terminal in Goldboro, which was also protested by the Mi'kmaq. And the Mi'kmaq have succeeded in this. And I have at that time, I had a very deep feeling that finally there is the right approach to climate change. And I know I'm stepping here in other communities' ground, but the indigenous people of North America have, and of probably many other places in the world, including the place where my parents grew up, the settlers found oil in all these different places that they settled in. And in the meantime, the way in which in Canada, the newcomers treated the indigenous people and has left such an enormous legacy of guilt
I'd like to thank
that's okay, we'll go further here. That's the words of the indigenous people on the West Coast, and also here in our little Nova Scotia, the Mi'kmaq, who often get forgotten, their word is the only word that might have an impact big enough. And that's what I thought a few years ago when I saw that movie by Eliza Knockwood. Has probably more impact than any protest from people that are using the fossil fuels. I'm not saying that indigenous people don't use fossil fuels, but they are definitely more aware of the environment. And that is my message for today, that the environment, the love of the environment of the Mi'kmaq people have had and probably will have influence on the way we use our renewables as in the way we use our environment by not only harvesting the environment, but then also spoiling the way it grows and thrives.
Thank you, Wietske.
My way too long story. Thank you very much.
I think we all agree that we owe a debt to the outlook, the worldview of the indigenous peoples of not only of Nova Scotia but of the world. Wietske, you had a reading as well that I wanted to use to lead into my reflection this morning.
Okay.
Do you have that in front of you? And are you?
Yeah, I do. This is a poem by Donna. No, it's called Donna Markova, and I don't know where it is from. I was hoping that you would give an introduction to that, Norm, but you didn't. So I have no idea where it is from and where it is going to. We got the information from Norm only yesterday. This is the poem. I will not die an unlived life. I will not live in fear of failing or catching fire. I choose to inhabit my days, to allow my living to open me, to make sense, to make me less afraid, more accessible, to lose my heart until it becomes a ring, a torch, a promise. I choose to risk my significance, to live so that which comes to me as seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to me as blossom goes on as fruit.
Thank you, Vitska. Our theme for January, as you well know by now, is living with intention. And that reading is a great introduction to the concept of living with intention. When researching materials about intention, I came across a phrase, intention deficit disorder, which was a play, of course, on a serious medical condition, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or ADHD. The American Psychiatric Association says on its website, symptoms of ADHD include inattention, not being able to keep focus, hyperactivity, excess movement that is not fitting to the setting, impulsivity, hasty acts that occur in the moment and without thought. The symptoms of intention deficit disorder, which is not a medical condition, it's something I've imagined. But as I imagine it, it would include living life as it comes to you without any real vision of where you want to go or what you want to do with your life. Intention deficit disorder would also include, like ADHD, taking actions without giving much thought to the objective or the potential outcome. I see all that around me today on social media. People expressing opinions seemingly off the top of their heads without any apparent intention beyond stirring the pot. Am I the only one who receives emails and is left wondering, what did the sender intend with that message? Why did they think I needed to see that link? And don't get me started about death scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, where the intention seems to be to escape from reality rather than to engage with life. Of course, the companies that control our social media are clear in their intention. They want to sell your attention to those who want to sell you some goods. When looking for an image that might capture this condition of intention deficit disorder, I found this one, and I used it on the front of the order of service. I don't know where it came from, but it's a long line of people trudging across a very barren winter landscape. Does that feel like sometime the condition that you're in? Just trudging through a COVID-decimated wasteland, not sure where you've been or where you're going, just putting, as is said often, one foot in front of the other, hoping that someone leading the way knows where we're going and maybe why. Not much room for intention here, just one foot in front of the other. Buddhism offers a more optimistic view. Intention in the Buddhist context is akin to mindfulness, being aware at all times of what you're doing and why you're doing it. For the Buddhist, intentionality is a path or a practice that is focused on how you're being in the present moment. Your attention is on the ever-present now, in the constantly changing flow of time. In this view, even the poor individual trudging along in that long line, unsure of where he's going, can be intentional, paying attention to each step, to each breath, to the condition of the clothing that is protecting them from the elements. My premise this morning is that there is a condition present in the world that we could call intention deficit disorder. Underlying this imagined condition of IDD is a feeling that nothing is really very important in life, and that our individual lives don't have much meaning in the cosmic reality that surrounds us. I've been thinking about Unitarian Universalist theology in the modern context. One definition of theology is the study of the nature of God and of religion and religious beliefs. On the subject of God, I think the most that UU theologians can say is there might be a God or there might not be a God. Of course, individual Unitarian Universalists can be much more specific in their personal theology, but as a faith tradition, we leave the question of God open to individual exploration. But on the subject of religion and religious beliefs, Unitarian Universalist theologians have much more fertile ground to work with. In his groundbreaking book titled Sapiens, author Yuval Noah Harari makes the claim that human society is held together by imagined systems that are either attributed to God or to an imagined immutable law of nature. But the emphasis is on the proposition that all of these are figments of human imagination. Traditional religion, be it Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, all are creation of the human imagination. So too, and serving the same function as religion, are capitalism, socialism, humanism, nationalism, money, monetarism, democracy, environmentalism, and Unitarian Universalism, to name a few. All the product of human imagination. If you doubt the power of human imagination to create systems of meaning, this week's Chronicle Herald had an enlightening story on the imaginary things known as non-fungible tokens. NFTs, as they're abbreviated, exist only in the digital world. They have absolutely no physical manifestation. And yet the money spent on NFTs, which didn't exist a couple of years ago, the money spent on them in 2021, people purchasing the rights to these NFTs, was roughly $18 billion. And that's equivalent to the amount pledged at COP26 to help countries phase out our coal, our use of coal, or the funding made available by the World Bank to help to buy and deploy COVID-19 vaccines. Millions of dollars spent on NFTs to purchase real estate in imaginary worlds. Worlds that exist only as computerized data, digital bits, and computers. Many of us, including me, worship at the altar of science, as if that could unite humanity. But science, by definition, does not deal with issues of ultimate value or ultimate meaning in life. And science, as it turns out, is based largely on mathematics. And the debate continues. Is mathematics something that humans invented? The creation of our imagination? Or is mathematics something that humans discovered? The debate continues. To the extent that all these religions and isms are defined as a set of fundamental principles that function to unite groups of people, they're all the same, and they all fulfill the same very important role in human cohesion. These are the ideas that allow us to live together in large numbers, and maybe even move towards a vision of one people and one planet. But they are all, nonetheless, the product of human imagination, not divine inspiration or natural law. There is not now, and there never will be, one product of human imagination that is right for all time and for all conditions. Unitarian Universalist theology is singularly adaptable, being a religion or a philosophy of continuing revelation. I want to repeat here the delightful Kurt Vonnegut quote from Cat's Cradle that I used last week. This time I've adapted it to be gender inclusive. He wrote, "In the beginning, God created the earth, and God looked upon it in cosmic loneliness. And God said, 'Let us make living creatures out of mud, so that mud can see what we have done. And God created every living creature that now moveth, and one was human. Mud, as human, alone could speak. And God leaned close to mud as the human sat up, looked around and spoke, and the human blinked. What is the purpose of all of this? The human asked politely. Everything must have a purpose, asked God. Certainly, said the human. Then God said, I leave it up to you to think of one for all of this. And God went away. A great story. I'd like to point out that God never said there was no purpose to all of this, just that he left it to humans to deal with the puzzle. And ever since that moment, we as human beings have been imagining purpose and meaning for ourselves and for our place in this immense universe. And that's not easy. We're challenged by our knowledge of the injustices, the degradation of the world around us, and at the same time as our capacity to resolve these issues as a species increases. We're also aware of our mortality, not only as individuals, but likely as a species in the grand scope of time. While there may not be one system of values that is given by God or by natural law that's right for all time, that's not to say that the times we live in don't call us to give meaning to our lives in the present context, to do the best we can under difficult circumstances. One could give up and lapse into intention deficit disorder. That's the underlying important decision that we're all called to make. The underlying call for us to act with intention. That's the challenge. That decision to act with intention is the cure for the intention deficit disorder. To make a decision that your life will stand for something to live by every day into that vision. And this is the highest role of the Unitarian Universalist community, to support one another in that quest, to give meaning to our lives, to act with that intention. May it be so, and amen. Our closing hymn this morning speaks of the need for us to take the initiative. Love knocks and waits for us to hear.
Love knocks and waits for us to hear, to open and invite. Love longs to quiet every fear and seek to set things right. Love offers life in spirit of foe who threaten and condemn. Embracing enemies, love goes the second mile with them. Love comes to heal the broken heart, to ease the troubled mind. Without a word, love bids us start to ask and seek and find.
And now, as they say, a word for our sponsors. That would be you. So here's your reminder that the ongoing functions of our congregation require your financial support. The best way to do that is through the support of our annual pledge drive, and this year the congregation has been very generous, and it's greatly appreciated. If, however, you are not able to participate in that way, or if you would like to support other activities that are funded outside of the pledge drive, here's your choice. Two programs that need funding are the Saturday Brunch and the Minister's Discretionary Fund. During COVID, as winter has closed in, I've been pleased to be able to occasionally help members, friends, and neighbors with small amounts of money that have made big differences in individual lives. The Minister's Discretionary Fund now is getting low, and at this point, as a result of this activity. So if you'd like to support our work, this slide will tell you how. And if you'd like to make a donation specifically to the Saturday Brunch or the Minister's Discretionary Fund, make sure that's clear when you communicate with the treasurer. And now, for our closing hymn. Our closing hymn speaks of a planet transformed by our care and by our intention. Jessica.
And it's one of my favorite hymns, Wake Now My Senses. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow, giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the truth. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and embrace the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the white sky. Take as your neighbor, both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Praying and striving their hardship to end.
Before I extinguish the chalice here in the sanctuary, these words. It was Abraham Maslow who wrote, "In any given moment, we have two options: to step forward in growth or to step back into safety." To which I will add, too often we step back into safety out of a sense of habit, as a result of intention deficit disorder. This morning, I hope that when you are presented with those two options, to step forward in growth or step back in safety, that we may each think carefully and act with intention. May it be so. Thank you all who attended the service today. I will say goodbye to those who joined us by YouTube now as we end our live streaming. For those who joined by Zoom, in a few minutes we'll be returning to sharing joys and sorrows, followed by our virtual coffee hour. So thank you all again. The streaming service will now end.